In today's video, I'm going to discuss what you can do if you think one of your opponents is exploiting you. Alrighty, thank you so much for joining me for today's video. My name is Sky Matsuhashi of Smart Poker Study, and before we go any further, just below the video, click that subscribe button and ding the bell so you get notified of every new YouTube video that hits the airwaves. So in a prior YouTube video just yesterday, I received a comment from Merlification. He said, "Hey Sky, can you please tell me if there's any way to see in Poker Tracker 4 losing showdowns based on the hand strength? So for instance, some kind of filter or report to show me hands that I'm losing to. Thanks." And I needed a little bit more clarification. And this is what I said, my response to him. Thanks for the question. To help me give you a good answer, please tell me how this information can help you. If I gave you a filter that tells you at showdown in your play session yesterday that you lost 10 hands total, 2 flushes, 3 straights, 1 was against 2 pair, 1 set, and 3 top pair hands. What can you do with this information to improve the way you play poker? And the reason why I asked that is when I first read Merlification's comment, it seemed like, well, this report isn't going to do you any good. If I knew yesterday I lost 10 hands, 2 were flushes, 3 were straights, yada, 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 what good does that do me? You know, just knowing that I lost to straights or lost to flushes. I need to know the action that went through the hand. I need to know who was the pre-flop raiser, who was the caller, who was the c-better, who was the caller, who check raised on the flop, all that kind of stuff to really learn anything from the losing hands, right? So he responded with, or she responded with, "Hi, I'd need that kind of report to see some showdown situations versus different villains in my database. For instance, which appear to be playing one way accordingly to their HUD, but I think they play differently versus me specifically." Now, this first question right here in no way is going to answer this at all. But let me tell you something. If you think somebody is playing specifically or in a specific way against you, i.e. they're exploiting you, then just assume that they are, right? If your plays... if you're making the best decisions possible, you want to take into account the idea that they might be exploiting you. Maybe they know that you are a one and done player or one and done player. So you c-bet the flop and you check a lot on the turn. Great. They're just going to call you every single flop. As soon as you check the turn, that's their opportunity to take the pot away from you. Now, they aren't doing this against you, Merlification, just because you're a one and done. If you're a one and done player, Bob over here is a one and done, Susie's a one and done. This opponent is exploiting all of you in the exact same way. Now, one of the things that you want to key into if you think they're exploiting you is take a look at their stats, and you can pull them up within Poker Tracker 4 to see what kind of player they are in general. And let me show you what that looks like here. So I pulled up a player named Home Tiger 24 that I play with over at Carbon. And just from experience watching Home Tiger play and seeing hands get to showdown and everything, it's pretty obvious Home Tiger knows what he's doing for sure. Now, I don't know that he specifically targets me with plays, but because he's a winning player, as you can see, 6,700 hands, $160 up, positive 9 big blinds per hand. Home Tiger knows what he's doing, and whether he's exploiting me or not, he at a minimum knows how to exploit me, right? So I should assume that he is. But what I would recommend for you, Merlification, and for everybody else who wants to just see if their opponents are exploiting them, go through their database of hands and take a look, right? So the first thing that you'd want to do is we have all these hands, 6,700, way too many to go through, right? Pull them up in your database right here, and then as a filter, go on down to actions and opportunities on the river, saw showdown. Because, if you want to know how somebody plays, because you're not there to ask them questions or to see what hands they had, you really need to see their showdown hands. Whatever they had tells you what they were thinking on the flop, the turn, or pre-flop, flop, turn, and river, so you can really get a feel for how they play. So if we go like this, out of those 67 hands, 374 saw a showdown. Great, that's pretty decent, right? Now, what we can do at this point is go through all of these hands, maybe look at their biggest winners, their biggest losers, and try to learn from them, right? But you had said specifically, Merlification, let me see, what did you say again? For instance, which appear to be playing one way accordingly to the HUD, but I think they play differently versus me specifically. So let's get rid of this filter real quick here. So this player, I took a look at their stats earlier, and one thing stood out to me, speaking about their HUD stats and how they play their hands. If we look at Home Tiger's C-bet flop turn river, on the flop as a total, 67%, 58%. So not so honest on the flop, slightly more honest on the turn. And honest just means when they bet, you should believe that they have a hand, right? But look at how much it drops to the river. C-bet percentage on the river, 36%, roughly 1 out of 3 times. So this player right here it basically is pretty darn river honest. Much more so than on the other streets for sure, right? So let's filter for some hands here. Let's take a look at c-betting hands from Home Tiger. I, of course, have this as a c-bet the river right here. So we see that Home Tiger has c-bet the river 19 times. When he has made that c-bet, 1,688 hands per, or 1,688 big blinds per 100 hands, or 17 big blinds per hand in profit. So, Home Tiger's definitely making c-bets on the river when they have a good hand, right? Let's take a look at this one right here, 8-6. And the reason why, actually, what we can do, instead of seeing all the hands, let's just attach one little filter right here. River, saw, showdown. So saw, showdown, and c-bet. So it's going to go from 19 down to 11 hands, but we're going to get to see in all these different hands what Home Tiger had. Let's take a look at 8-6 here. So we get one limper. Home Tiger isolates out of the small blind, fold, and then DFW decides to call. Great. Trip 8s for Home Tiger. He's probably jumping in his seat, especially given, look how loose passive this player is. Folds a decent amount on the flop, but not on the turn. He's probably thinking I can get max value here. So he bets $1 to suck him in, most likely, get a call. Quads, holy cow, what am I going to do? How am I going to get all the money? Now he increased it with a really strong hand to 3/4 pot. Against a player who called, if you look at that flop, what's he calling here with? Maybe some overcards, maybe a flush draw, maybe a 5 that he just doesn't want to believe Home Tiger has a better hand. But if he's willing to call that flop, the turn doesn't really change too many things, right? DFW, if he does have a 5 or even a pair of 6s or 7s, he has a full house now. He's probably not giving it up. So you can see the increased bet sizing because he's expecting it to get called and wants to get called, of course. And gets the call. Great. Now the jack hits on the river, makes a big enough bet to get Soup to commit. Soup does. We show the quads and ace queen for just an ace high. So Soup right here is a loose passive unbeliever. If you're betting with the overcards, just bet for max value against DFW Soup, but do not try to bluff them. But we can see right now that Home Tiger triple barreled for total value, right? So this is actually a pretty good insight to know, is that when he does this hand, it's one hand that confirms our read earlier that c-betting on the river is a value bet for sure. Let's take a look at another hand. Let's go to this. Let's take a look at this King Jack here. So Home Tiger raises to 80 cents under the gun, 1 caller, 2 callers, great. Totally nothing on the flop, 2 overcards. $1.80, so a pretty decent sized bet into 2 players, hopefully just gunning for a fold, because the deuce 4-7, there's some draws, but not too many on this kind of board. But you get a caller. Now the jack hits. So you can see, remember, he had the King Jack, so now he has a top pair hand. Look at the size of that bet now. 5/6 of the pot. Really good size bet. And gets a call. Now the 6 hits, completes the straights and stuff. But he does decide to c-bet. You can see now how the size of the c-bet went down because he's not so happy with his hand anymore. Gets a call. And then had that jack 7 for 2 pair on the turn. Yeah, so you can see, did triple barrel, but that river sizing was so much smaller in comparison to the turn sizing. So when it comes to the river c-bet sizing, it seems it's only 2 hands, but it seems like Home Tiger is kind of face up with their sizing on river c-bets. Let's take a look at one more. Let's go jack 5 right here. Oh, this is a nice hand, catching the flush. So min open on the button. That's Home Tiger's normal sizing. 2 callers. So jack 5 hits a flush draw plus a backdoor straight. $1, 2/3 pot with a pretty good equity, right? Got 1 caller. Okay, good. So they're heads up. Now 31-2, a loose passive player, probably going for value now. Check. And now look at the size. All of a sudden, a big jump up to $2.50. Home Tiger likes his hand and is trying to get really good value here and get a call. The 9 completes. Home Tiger's probably hoping that he hits some kind of a straight or 10-9 two pair, you know. And the $6, a pretty good size in comparison to that 850 pot. Now you can see it is on the smaller side. Maybe Home Tiger is worried that, I don't know, Enzo might have like a king high or a queen high flush. It's possible, but at least there's no full houses present on this board, right? And then gets a call right there, Jack 5, and then 7-9, so got called by a lower flush. He could have bet more on that river. So it seems pretty indicative that he's betting for value when he's triple barreling. Smaller bets or when he doesn't have quite as strong a hand as he'd like. Bigger bets are probably closer to nut hands. Let's take a look at one more to see what we see. This big hand right here. Oh, 5-4. Oh, so we can see this is interesting. Home Tiger 3 bets pre-flop with a 5-4 suited versus kind of a tight aggressive / loose aggressive player. Gets one call. Flop in the gut shot plus a backdoor flush draw. 260, so just half pot with not the strongest of hands, right? It's kind of a weak backdoor flush draw. It's not like ace high or anything for one overcard plus the backdoor flush draw. Not that. 260. Now, turned a little bit extra equity right here. So the first bet was less than half pot. Second bet, less than half pot. So look at that. This is a double barrel that is less than half pot, both bets, indicating a weaker hand, right? Now $14, all of a sudden, hit the flush on the river, really happy about it, increases it from less than half pot to 2/3 pot, 66% right here. Totally going for value, 100%. Awesome, awesome. So now we've seen 4 hands now where the betting pattern that Home Tiger uses when they're c-betting flop, turn, and river, it's indicative of the strength of their hand, right? So now what you'll want to do, Merlification or everybody else, if you're examining one of your opponents, you want to now take notes on all this kind of stuff. And then when they're playing against you, look for these exact same sizes. Now, they might think you fold a whole lot, so maybe they'll make it bigger specifically against you. But you're going to have to call or re-raise to figure that kind of stuff out. But now that you know their betting patterns, or Home Tiger's betting patterns on these over these 4 hands, we can look for it in game to see if we can't just exploit their tendencies, right? We're throwing it back on them right now. Let's take a look at one more thing here. So we looked at times when they've been making that c-bet on the river, but we know that they're pretty c-bet honest on rivers. So maybe what are they not c-betting on rivers that actually end up going to showdown? So we have river continuation bet saw showdown. We want to select not c-bet the river, but that's going to show us too many hands where they just called flop, turn, and river, right? We also want to go down here, river actions and opportunities, opportunity to c-bet. So let's take a look at our filter here. Opportunity to c-bet, but they didn't c-bet, and it still saw showdown. So when this happened, when they did not put out the c-bet, they're losing money, right? Home Tiger's losing money. That means that no c-bet equals a poor hand, right? Totally. Or just not wanting to bluff kind of a thing. Let's take a look here in the small blind. Let's see, failed to c-bet. Let's take a look at this hand. Really big pot one. 2 limps. Home Tiger makes a good size ISO raise. Nice. 1 caller. 2. 3 callers. Wow, out of position against 3 callers with pocket queens. I expect a big bet like 350 here. Only $3. Wow. Okay, maybe you're kind of, I don't know. I would have made that bigger just to charge any kind of weird draws or top pair hands even more with your really strong over pair right now. And you get 2 callers still, so you're out of position versus 2 players. 1380 in the pot, less than half a pot behind. 64, 24 behind, so decent stack sizes still. 2 SPR, $10. So you can see right here, pretty darn good size bet. $10 into 14, gets a caller, gets another call right there. Now look at this, $14 with only 41 or $41 with only 14 behind. There's no way he's given up this hand. Oh, the 7 kind of makes things a little bit scary. A 9 just now hit. Like 10-9 on the flop, suddenly river to straight. That's possible. But against that, 975. So if we think about 975, so it's $10. Home Tiger just has to call $10 to win $60, right? So that means they only need to win 17% of the time, which that's basically 1 out of every 5. Home Tiger's hand is good 1 out of every 5. Look how often Roxky bets on the river, 55%. That's a total bluffer. He's got to be calling here. There's no way he's folding, And good, he check calls, which you could see instead of c-betting because his hand lost a bit of equity. It's a little bit scarier board. He only has a pair. He's not c-betting here. Ace-jack, and you beat the ace-jack. Queen 10, you beat the Queen 10. Wow, what a good takedown right there for Home Tiger. So a really good pot. But look, this is a time when they did not c-bet the river, and it's indicative of them not liking their hand that much, right? That doesn't mean they're going to fold if they don't c-bet, but it means that they don't want to purposely build that pot anymore. So what you could do at this point, what I can do at this point, is I can specifically go through all of these hands and look for ones where it was me and Home Tiger battling on the river to see if Home Tiger plays differently. Maybe Home Tiger is wanting to exploit the way I fold too much. So maybe when they're bluffing, flop, turn, and river are all 3/4 pot bets against me, which is totally possible. Then it's good to know that. If I go through and actually look for that instance here, it would be good to know that the next time I'm in a confrontation with Home Tiger. But we learned a ton about Home Tiger today. Home Tiger, if you're watching this video, actually will help you out. Don't be so transparent with your bet sizes, especially when you're c-betting flop, turn, river, But here's the thing. You're a micro stakes player. Your bet sizings have been working fine for you. You just might want to be careful if you're up against somebody like me or Merlification who are looking for ways to avoid being exploited or to exploit our opponents. Alrighty. Well, Merlification, thanks again for those comments on that other video. Everybody else, thank you so much for watching. Once again, click that subscribe button, ding that bell, and if you learned a little something from this video, hit that like button down below, and please leave a comment as well. I'll catch you later.